Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. My name is Angelia, and today it is time once again for Friday Reads. I think that it is March 10th. Let me check. Indeed, it is. It's March 10th, and I want to go over this week in reading. It was mostly good stuff. There was one DNF. We will break it down in just a minute. I don't have anything new to add in the category of TV shows that we are watching. Still watching Shrinking and The Last of Us. I think the final episode of the season is Sunday. That show, if you like apocalyptic type stories at all, this show is so good. And I know it's gotten all this hype and everything. I don't know anything about the video game, but I don't know. It's just really good. And then we're still watching Hacks as well. We're enjoying it. So I think it was Mark made the comment that we should continue on. And so thank you very much for that advice because we are still enjoying it. Now we're in season 2. Let's focus on books. So last week I left off, I had read a few stories from Antarctica. My plan was to read a couple of stories in between the novels. And you know, and I know that I was not going to do that, and I read the whole book, of course. So I continued on and I just read them all, and it was good. I would say definitely I had that feel of first collection short story writer kind of feel because they were a little uneven, but even saying that, the unevenness ranged from good to great, and you could definitely see all the elements of the type of writing that she's done more recently in these stories. My 2 favorite stories in the collection were, actually I had 2 or 3 favorite stories. I really loved Men and Women, which was about a family at a New Year's Eve celebration, a farm family, and a young girl just observing the disparities between her parents, their expectations of behavior, and then also I really loved the story called Sisters, which is about 2 sisters, one of whom has lived her life on the family. It's not exactly a farm, it's more like a country house, and caring for her ailing father until he passed away. And the other sister has left Ireland and went to England and got married and had a family. And there is some long simmering resentment with the sister who stayed behind, and it all comes to a glorious, fabulous head at the end of the story. But I would say that the themes in this book that appear again and again are sadness, anger and resentment, loss. There's quite a few incidents of women being very frustrated with men and annoyed with the differences in expectations and roles and what happens when their patience with this runs out. Sometimes, as in the one story, it's between the 2 sisters who picked different paths and the one who felt like she got stuck behind and didn't get to fulfill all of her expectations. And then other ones go different ways. And I was surprised that some of them were not set in Ireland at all. There was a few set in the United States, but I found out that she studied there when she was in college. And so, because one story is a straight up like Southern fiction story. And I was surprised to find that appearing in the middle of a Claire Keegan book. But overall, I did enjoy the experience. The only thing I have left of hers to read is Walk the Blue Fields. That one I have not read, and I find it very interesting always, the whole question of an author and their output, because she has 2 collections of short stories and 2 novellas, and sometimes there's a 10-year gap in between. Just the range of how prolific a writer is, the lengths of and the frequency of their books, and whether or not that affects the quality, it's very interesting to me. So anyway, I look forward to whatever she releases next, and I do have that one collection of short stories that I have not yet read. If you have read Antarctica and Walk the Blue Fields, are they markedly different in content or theme or tone or not. Let me know in the comments if you have anything to say about that. But that was interesting. Okay, so the next thing that happened was I embarked upon this book, The Longest Journey by Ian Forster. I talked about last week how I was lucky to obtain this copy for free from thrift books. Now I feel even more lucky that it was free. And I was hoping, I knew that this was Forster's least read novel, and there was really not a whole lot of discussion online or articles about it, and what there were kind of tepid. But I was hoping that I was going to read it and find an undiscovered by me gem, a secret treasure, kind of like how I felt when I read some of his short stories. But alas, what I found instead was that the title was prophetic to my reading experience. And my long journey ended on page 100 when I just decided that this book was no fun and I DNF'd. Now, I don't want to spoil this for someone who might be having a better time with it, but nobody has commented in several days in the Discord. So I don't know what's going on, if people are going to suddenly pop up with enthusiasm and then I'm going to want to take a second look. But as of now, I declare this book to be boring and I stopped reading it. I couldn't latch on to the main character. I really wanted to like Ricky, the aspiring writer, and I just couldn't get a handle on him, what his personality was supposed to be. The supporting characters, some of them seemed as if they were supposed to be amusing or whimsical, but I didn't really care for them. And I just couldn't, it just didn't seem to be going anywhere. And there was something else that I'm not going to get into because it would be a spoiler, but never mind, I can't even say it. So anyway, it wasn't my cup of tea. And so I stopped. So then I went back to Ireland and I read, this is absolutely not visual whatsoever, but this is my copy of Dubliners. And I read The Dead, which is a story that I really love. I wanted to read that story last September when I was doing Shorty September, but the way I had set up my challenge, I was doing a story each day. And so I was having to kind of cherry pick the shorter stories so that I could fit them in on the schedule. And so The Dead didn't make the cut. I think I talked about Araby instead, which I also love, but The Dead is a little bit longer form of a short story, but it's just so beautiful. The ending, like the last couple paragraphs of that story, I just love. And every now and then I have to read the whole story again just to get to that ending. And something I found in the earlier part that I love that I didn't jump out at me in earlier readings was the character of Aunt Julia and how she is beginning to decline and how the people around her respond to that. And I guess that sort of resonated with me now as somebody with older parents and some of the things that we are approaching with that. And so I saw that more clearly. And then near the end of the story, Gabriel thinks about her a little bit more. And anyway, so that sort of stood out to me, even though it was not the main thrust of the story. But it's just such a little jewel, and I enjoyed reading that again. And it, cleared my mind of the tedious experience that Ian Forster had wrought upon me. I am also continuing my mammoth, David Copperfield. And look what I found out. I just happened to take the dust jacket. This dust jacket is, I think it's got like this pretty retro vibe. But I happened to take it off last night when I was reading, and I discovered that underneath was really a pretty little, not little, but a pretty book. So I don't know. I'll keep the jacket on it to protect it, but I kind of like how it looks without the jacket as well. One thing that's kind of weird about this book is that it is illustrated, but the illustrations don't line up. I don't know if I mentioned this before. They don't line up with what is happening in the story. They are completely random. So, I mean, the first illustration the very first thing you get is a picture of Charles Dickens looking really depressed. And then, but the first story illustration is, I can't even find it now, but it's a picture of David meeting Dora, and I'm on page 363, and that hasn't even happened yet in the story, but that was the picture they put with one of the first couple of chapters. So every now and then there's a picture plate about something that happened in the story, but has nothing to do with what's happening at the part that you're reading. So I don't get that at all. And it says that those pictures were reproductions of the original illustrations by Cruikshank, Fizz, Gilbert, and Darley. And I don't know if they released their pictures at the right time, but they didn't put them at the right time in this book. But that's okay. I am enjoying this very much. I love the whole panoply of additional characters. And I'm really, what's happening here, since I just read Demon Copperhead and now I'm reading this, I'm having like this backwards effect of this book enhancing my experience of Demon Copperhead. Now that I'm reading this book and remembering how she wove these characters into an updated story and what she did to transpose the situations and the settings into Appalachia, and how she migrated the poverty and the family circumstances of David on over to Demon. Now I'm doubly impressed at Barbara Kingsolver's writing skills, writing that novel, even though I'm reading this novel. So anyway, I'm really enjoying it. I like the pace at which I am going. It's working out with the reading on the side. I just read a little bit of this every day, a couple times, and then whatever else I'm reading a couple other times, and that's what's happening. After I read the James Joyce, though, I felt a need to read something contemporary to go along with Dickens for a while. I had this strong need to move up to the current day, and so I picked one of the books that I have talked about a couple times that I've been wanting to get to, and I was really glad that I did. And I read Signal Fires by Dani Shapiro. This is a story that takes place in multiple times and with multiple narrators, which of course I love. I know some people don't like that, but this book you do get some nice little helpers, little clues. Every time the narrator or the time period changes, you do get a notification and the person's name at the top. So you don't get that disjointed feeling of, wait, where am I now? Who is this? It's labeled for you. So if that's a concern when you're reading something with multiple times or narrators going back and forth, it's covered for you here. The book opens with a tragic incident where 3 teenagers are in a car, there's drinking involved, and an accident. And then there is a lie told after this accident that reverberates for the characters throughout their lifetimes. And that happens in the 80s. And then we go forward in time with a brother and sister and their father, and also a family across the street from their family home that moves in later on when they're older. It's hard to succinctly tell you what this story is about, except that it is about the lasting impacts of regrets, mistakes, decisions throughout a person's life. And also it's about the role of connection. And it's told through a series of times when the people converge together in an unexpected way. So the idea of the connection that you weren't expecting, or the unknown ways in which we intersect with each other, this is also part of this story. I can't give too much away because these different incidents are the kind of the key points of the plot. What I think is interesting here is her choice. It's a kind of a short book, and what she chooses not to go into. Like, this book is about these people. We get different snapshots of them at different points of time, and then there's several key incidents where the people converge. But there's long spans of time that are really significant in these people's lives that are not expanded at all. And they're important in the story and everyone refers to them, but they're not portrayed in the story. So to me, that's a really interesting choice to write a shorter book with just these highlighted moments. She could have written one of those long, sprawling family sagas over the decades where you go into all those things. And that also could have been a good book, but this one is just sort of crystallized. And the most poignant character to me is Waldo, who is a child who lives across the street from the first family that is presented. And then he grows up, and Waldo's neurodiverse and lives with a set of parents. His mother is very devoted to him. His father doesn't understand him, and his father is just this chronically angry person. He's angry that his career and his life path is sort of lackluster. He's angry that his son is not the kind of kid he was imagining. He's angry with himself that he doesn't respond to things the way he wished he had. He's angry that he's angry. He's just a really difficult character. And Waldo is stuck with him, but finds a connection in a surprising different place. Don't want to give too much away. But I did find a clue to her choice in this novel in the acknowledgments. I like to read acknowledgments because a lot of times they mention other authors that I like, or I just like to hear what they have to say. And sometimes if there was research, I like to hear what it was because I'm a dorky old librarian. But this particular shout out, it says, a special shout out to Jennifer Egan, who suggested to me over a decade ago that chronology of any sort is boring. Thanks for reminding me by example that the high wire is the only place worth being. And I love that comment, and it really does explain to me why she went ahead and made this novel that moves all around and highlights some things and not others. So this was really, really good. It was really good. I read it very compulsively over about 2 days. I highly recommend Signal Fires by Dani Shapiro. So that brings us up to the current moment. I finished Signal Fires yesterday. So what am I reading next? Well, I am continuing with David Copperfield, my mammoth. And the other book that I need to read right now doesn't fit into any of the monthly challenges, but I will explain why I need to read this next. And it is Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. Now here's my story. I've been wanting to read this book for a while. I've seen people talk about it on other channels, and I thought it sounded intriguing. Some people have commented to me that they enjoyed it and found it strange and unsettling, and they enjoyed it too, and I like a book like that. But what happened was I requested it at the library previously, and it came in, and the time it came in, I checked out a whole lot of books, and I was reading, and then all of a sudden it was due, and somebody else had requested it, so I couldn't renew it. And when I made that discovery, I only had 2 days left, and I was right in the middle of something else, so I had to sadly relinquish it. And then I re-requested it, and it came up this week, so I had to pick it up. So I must read it this time or forever hold my peace. And although I did find out, the librarian let it slip that there's actually a grace period. So I had more than 2 days, and now I know there's secret wiggle room in case it happens again. Here's what it's about. Leah is changed. A marine biologist, she left for a routine expedition months earlier, only this time her submarine sank to the seafloor. Okay, I could never do one of those long projects in a submarine. I would be so claustrophobic and paranoid that I would die in the submarine. Anyway, I digress. When she finally surfaces and returns home, her wife Mary knows that something is wrong. Barely eating and lost in her thoughts, Leah rotates between rooms in their apartment, running the taps morning and night. Whatever happened in that vessel, whether it was the crew was supposed to be studying before they were stranded, whatever it was that the crew was supposed to be studying before they were stranded, Leah has carried part of it with her onto dry land and into their home. As Mary searches for answers, desperate to understand what happened below the water, she must face the possibility that the woman she loves is slipping from her grasp. All right, so that sounds pretty good. And we have a blurb here from Sarah Waters, one of my favorite authors, that says, deeply romantic and fabulously strange. You know what else is strange? How long it's been since Sarah Waters has released a book. 2014, Sarah Waters. So stop writing blurbs and finish your next novel. But I do appreciate her endorsement. So I'm going to read this next, and in case somebody requests it again and snatches it out from under me. So, and it's not very long. So I'm excited to start this book today. I hope I love it. After that, I do not know. I have to review and see where I think I want to do a mystery because I've only read one mystery for Mystery Madness. So I think I'll look at my options. I am still waiting for a whole bunch of mysteries to be processed and added at the library, but I do have a couple on my cart that I could read while I'm waiting. And I think that is about it. What have you been reading this week? Are you making any progress on a mammoth or any of the other challenges or something else altogether? I will probably film, this is what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to film a video this weekend that I can schedule to come out on Tuesday. And I don't even know what kind of video. Maybe it's going to be a tag. I don't know. Because my daughter's visiting for her spring break next week, and so we will be having family fun time, and I won't have time to make a video on Tuesday. So that is my plan, and if somehow that doesn't work out, then there won't be a video. That's all there is to that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day. Let me know what's going on, and I will be back soon. Bye-bye.